welcome to another satiating and sore pus saturated episode of Diatribes with the voice of Boone. Back at it again. Couple more for old time's sake here. Yeah, I really don't like Chat GDP or Chat GPT. I don't know why it exists. I think that allowing the public to just use AI for free is just so, yeah, really bad, commercialized move. I don't know how it could possibly be worse as an invention. I wanted to talk about the news again. Not how not any news stories, just the news in general because um, it's starting to make me irritated. And this is a video diary, but also a little bit of a newsletter. So I don't really like Fox News anymore. I used to think that they talked about some important stuff, but I get honestly like I get most of my news from a morning brief or email from the New York Times, and then I read the state and local newspapers because that's actually what's affecting me, like the road closures and just what's happening around the place. If I have to worry about the weather, stuff like that. Ultimately, if I am interested in a political story, I'll usually watch it on Fox or CNN. Most of the time, they're pretty much the same, anyways. It's just they'll use a different adverb or a subjunction, or leave out a certain person's interview, something like that. But I don't really watch that much CNN. I did start to get into a Business Insider, as well as there was this other one, Yahoo Finance. No, maybe I can't remember, but I don't really like Fox. I just feel like it's a nothing burger every single time now, and when they do stuff that's actually really um, that actually raises some important questions or actually provides a lot of valuable information, they'll just harp on and on about that one thing that they discovered and not really try to put together a story. I think it's dumb. I feel like these people, they just talk and talk and talk about, their political preference. And I used to think that for the most part it was okay, if news outlets were partisan, as long as ultimately, they gave an equal shot to, all the other ones. If you're gonna be paid by the Republican Party, if you're gonna be paid by the Libertarian Democrat, whatever, then at the very least, you should really consider how, your other viewers are gonna react to your stories, because that's money that you're losing, because you're losing those viewers because they're gonna think that you're totally biased and that you're not giving other candidates a chance. And I think that Fox is guilty of that. I really do. This whole thing with Tucker Carlson, I don't really know what's happening. I think that for the last 10 something years, he's been harping on about how unbelievably dumb our government is, how, they shouldn't have power, how, but not really offering any sort of solutions, or, rather, other routes that, our congressional delegates could be choosing. And, talking about the end times and how our border is basically made out of toothpicks, or, how all this money is just getting washed away by all the immigrants coming in. Yeah, that sort of thing. I live in the capital of Nevada. We're not too close to Mexico, but still, if someone was trying to escape California and wasn't really a big fan of New Mexico, Arizona, this is probably where they would come, because Las Vegas is a little bit of a cesspool. And Carson City's, well, not lately, but, we used to have a very, very good living, what's it called? Cost of living. So, I don't know. Look, every picture tells a story. Ultimately, they do have a lot of truth. But one of the examples that really bothered me is Biden came out and said that he feels like a lot of the news outlets are just generally making him look bad, which I am kind of partial to agree in a way. That doesn't mean in any way that I approve that, ultimately he would be doing just fine or looking like he was doing just fine if not for those outlets. But when you're a guy, possibly the most important man in the country, aside from a few CEOs or stockbrokers that have as many $100 million bills as I have arm hair, then you're gonna have cameras following you around, like filming every single freaking thing that you do and say. And the guy's in his 80s, and I don't think that he's really that fit to be president, but ultimately I don't think that he really has that much power compared to Congress, which never wants to use their power other than vetoing whatever the president does. So I feel like he doesn't have enough power to really do what he wants to do, and when he does have the power, when he does have the decision making finally figured out, he gets bastardized by the media or he gets shunned by his own colleagues. I think that the president needs to be able to lead and shut people up and freaking fire their stupid asses if they don't fall in line. Silence the freaking media. Freaking fire your chief of staff that's been, doing the job for 30 years or whatever. It was passed down from his father. If they don't, I feel like we really need to crack down on our medium delegates. All the directors and the administrators and the House of Reps and the Senate and all these leaders that are not the president need to shut the hell up and let him lead. I'm tired of seeing everyone blame Biden for everything. It's like, freaking, why does he have 49% approval? You're gonna tell me that half the country is just blindly following whatever, and they're just so unbelievably senile that they can't possibly see anything good, or they can't possibly, be meant to see reason? I don't know. But there's no way that I'm going to believe for 1 second that 20, 30 years ago there was not this much corruption. Do you know how easy it would be for a president to just freaking run over a guy and not, call the police or not have to be held accountable? Because he's the president, he's got his own secret service, there's no cameras following him. It's not like they had smartphones back then. I don't believe it. Okay, there's no reason why someone should be saying, oh, this is the most corrupt system. Maybe he is the most corrupt, I feel like we would know it for sure. It wouldn't be a maybe. It wouldn't be people being like, he's probably the most corrupt, or, we have evidence to suggest. It's like, what do you mean? All right, do you know or do you not? You've got cameras on him 24/7, 25/8 rather. You've got people focusing on every freaking breath he takes. Of course you're going to find evidence that says something like this. Okay, what? A guy in his 80s is not allowed to have any mistakes whatsoever, or ever take an envelope full of money that he thought was going towards something, but it was actually going towards that. I don't know. I don't know what they're saying. He came out and said, of course, that, he feels like the media is just making him look bad. And then Fox came out with a stupid thing saying, oh, well, if you look at this statistic with very vague numbers and, a really vague date, in your first 100 days, Fox was actually supporting you. Oh, how magnanimous and generous, unbelievably benevolent are those directors and those producers of your news outlet. The first 100 days. If only, those 100 days still mattered today, and that's what he was referring to. I'd like to think that when the president says something like, the news outlets are making me bad, not made me bad, past tense, he's referring to now. He doesn't care about what happened his first 100 days. He's been office for, a lot of time has passed. I don't know. November, almost 3 years, I guess, in this November. I don't know. It's only May. No, that's a stupid nothing burger of just nothingness. And one of the things I don't like about their commentators, and this is including Greg Gutfeld, even though occasionally, he brings up a good point, and Tyrus as well. I like Tyrus. He's actually got I am a little bit biased, though, because I used to like him as a wrestler, and he's just got a really interesting life. They occasionally bring up some good points and really make you think and make you wonder, that, oh, man, I should be paying attention to this more. But most of the time, they're just harping on and on about the same thing. It's like, yeah, we supported you. And it's like, didn't we support him? It's like, we, like, gave him the best um, image on a silver platter. And it's like, move on. Are you ever going to get off the same subject, or, the same. Are you ever going to move on to a different matter and actually talk about the news, or actually, talk about what it is that he's doing instead of worrying about your own? There's. I think it's ludicrous. It's absurd. It's like, what? When did the news outlet become an opinion seeking, or, an opinion, just a place to hear five or six people rant and rave about how righteous the Republican Party is, and if only the Republicans were in charge again, we would have so much, we would just be drowning in peace and prosperity. Everybody would have jobs and be making so much money. It'd be unbelievably an unbelievable victory for the common man, or the blue collar, or whatever. I don't know. So it's pretty much just pushing the finish line further and further away, because you're never going to have a Congress, or a bicameral Congress, and a presidential cabinet full of Republicans, as well as the Supreme Court, as well as circuit courts, as well as district courts, as well as every single administrator, a big time, government bureaucrat be Republican. It's just not going to happen. So I don't want to hear that crap saying, oh, who knows? Maybe I'm maybe I'm guilty of it too. I'm harping on about the same thing, but this is my only video about Fox, and I'd like to think that this has been going on for a while. They just keep on bashing Biden for the small freaking crap. It's like he posted a tweet or whatever saying, he was still proud of his son, and then they were all saying, oh, they were all imitating him, like as if they were Biden, saying, "Oh, don't worry, son. Even though you were charged with, fraud and felony document, hiding charges, I'm still proud of you." It's like, okay, maybe have you ever comprehended that blood is thicker than water, and ultimately your family cannot not be your family even if they make a mistake. It's like, what, he gets charged. By the way, he's charged with it. As far as I know, he's not guilty of it. He hasn't been found guilty, and even if he is found guilty, we still don't know if it factually happened, because there are mistrials and there are appeals, and that's why we have the system in place of our justice system that we have now. Is like, you can be found guilty, and then freaking 50 years later, courts are like, oh, hey, actually he didn't do it. Sorry, you spent 50 years of your life in prison. Yeah, that happens. And I think it's to think that, a father is supposed to stop loving his son because he is charged with crimes. It's not like you're the Pope and he freaking urinated on the crucifix rosemary necklace bead thing with Jesus on it. Or he disrespected, you in your own home. Okay, they're father and son. They should love one another, even if they make the worst mistakes ever. I can think of a lot of worse criminals that have been put away that still care about their family and still love their son or daughter, when they murdered and raped and pillaged and freaking road raged and was a meth head. I don't know. That's just the way I see it. I feel like they're really sweating the small stuff. They're really scraping from the bottom of the barrel when it comes to hating Biden just indefinitely. And ultimately, I feel like, gas prices have really swung down a lot. I'm not seeing as many. I'm not having to wait in line at the grocery store for deli meats, or even in line because there's nobody worth the register because of unemployment problems. I'm just not seeing it like we used to. And I think that at some point you really do just have to give credit and say, yeah, maybe it's not Biden's personal victory that he made these policies, but at some point you really do just have to say, he's not, this president has not drug us into the apocalypse, so there's that. That's all I'm going to say. I've heard a lot of great things about Ron DeSantis. I don't know whether Trump's going to get the nomination or whether um, that other woman, I don't even, was it Sarah Palin? No, someone else. Um, or whoever. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I feel like whoever becomes president is just going to be another puppet for Congress to play around with. And that ultimately we've built ourselves into a corner here in terms of how much power they have. America is basically like a 475 man dictatorship now, or how many people are in Congress? Something around that. 475, 535? That sounds right. 535 man dictatorship that just swing their power around like it's some kind of mace, and that somehow, we're supposed to thank them for being our small leaders and just blame the president for everything. And it really irritates me, especially when there are news outlets that refuse to ever give an inch and just, no matter who they are, if they're Democrat and if they don't represent our values as a news outlet, then we are going to gut them and blackball them and make sure that the American people know, even though we don't really give any facts, we just give our opinions over and over, that they are not qualified. So, again, that's just how I see it. Do I have a solution? Obviously not at the top of my head, but something's got to be done about all these small bureaucratic leaders that just choke down all the power and refuse the big leaders to get anything done. Because one of these days we're going to be slow to an absolute crawl, like a turtle with no legs, because our own power has been stripped away by all these checks and balances, which originally were a great thing and I think made America a much better country than others because we had those checks and balances. But at some point, it just has way too much steam, and we got to cool down and let our leaders lead. So that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and stay positive.